Hey listeners, you know we've got a Patreon, right? Where supporters get early access to all our podcasts, bonus episodes, discounts on merch, and access to the Feminist Frequency Discord? Well, now you do. Get all this fun stuff while supporting our show at patreon.com/femfreak. That's FEMFREQ. Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm not going to be on today's episode. I'm just here to tell you that I'm really excited to pass the episode hosting crown to Feminist Frequency's board member and incredible scholar and delightful human, Kishonna Gray. She's going to be talking with some special guests about Blackness and gaming.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. I'm Kishonna Gray. You do not normally hear from me or see me, but I thought it was very appropriate for maybe me to do this and to be in this space in this particular month, which is February. Some may call it Black History Month. Glad you all celebrate that.
Black Everything Month.
Absolutely.
Hey, Black Person Month. Like we can start early.
Yeah, is this gonna be video or no?
No, it's no video. It's just audio.
Okay,
so
good.
Yeah, it's just
Sorry.
audio.
Oh, you can't see me dancing in the back.
No, I can't see you dancing. But for those of y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and give a description. We have Latoya dancing a little jig that I like very much.
I feel like I dance in like game emojis now. Like all our characters need animations that's been broke for like 15 years. So we're fixing all our animations, and so now we got all these new emoji coming in. I feel like all I do is dance. Like I do the Shawn is over here posing. I feel like we do like the Unity Vogue. What is the Unity version?
Yeah.
No, but that's what video games did to us, right? Like I'm one of those people who brought Dance Central moves into the club. Like I full on brought them dances into the club. I'm like, that's all I had because I can't dance for real. So I brought them into the club.
I'm in DDR. You're doing good. Dance Central's doing good. Pump is better. Dance Central's doing good.
Absolutely. So y'all have heard voices. I guess I can tell you who I have with me. I'm so sorry. I am here with Latoya Peterson, which a lot of folks know from a lot of spaces. I'm trying to think about when we first met. I remember we met. When we meet, what's our origin story, Latoya? When did we meet?
Racialicious?
Oh my gosh.
Racialicious?
That's like mid-2000s.
Where I met everybody cool. Racialicious. Like,
oh my gosh. That's been a while ago. Was it 2000?
I wrote about video games and race, and there were 9 other people doing the same thing, of which I ain't gonna laugh. Evan Narcisse was like, 9. Give me the receipts. Who else? 9?
Who was that? Absolutely. And I feel like
were you a young PhD student?
I was.
A young PhD, just like Sophia Noble. Mm-hmm, see?
Yes. Oh my gosh, we're all young. Oh my gosh. And that was like really such a powerful platform that we haven't written enough about. You know, it was really like one of like the first platforms that really put these conversations and people into conversation with one another. I think that was also maybe the first time that I got connected to people like Sophia. You know, we got introduced to other folks like Andre Brock and different folks. You know, it was this platform. It wasn't academic spaces that brought us together. It was this platform. That's wild. That's really wild. So that's our origin story. And I don't think we physically met.
My origin story with Shawn is better. That's my favorite.
Can I hear that one?
I'm going to have Shawn tell you that, what he did. Shawn know what he did.
No.
What's y'all's origin story? Tell me that.
So, yeah, like Latoya always says it a certain way. But so like the thing is that so like a lot of background is, so I at Indiecade 2013, I had given a talk called How Urban Black and Latino Cultures Could Be the Next Frontier of Indie Games. I spent about 4 months researching this thing after John Sharp, a really nice man who was the curator of the talk space. Like he said, when I submitted this idea, it was just an idea because I was like, where's the Black people in this thing? And I was like starting to be like, where's all these people? And so he accepted it. And then I was like, man, now I got to work on this thing. And I was like, it took me 4 months of researching and stuff to put together this talk. So then the next year, like the thing is like Indiecade doesn't pay for anyone's flights or anything. They just give you a ticket. So like they don't pay you to talk. They don't pay you for anything. And they like said, hey, can y'all do like this race and games panel? And we kept trying to come up with a a new title for it. And it was like me with a bunch of people, you know, who I knew. And then we had gotten on a bunch of calls about it. And, you know, everybody was a little anxious because, again, like it's like there's a stigma to talking about issues in the games industry that, especially if you think about it being 2014, you know, this was, you know, a long time ago, where things hadn't really moved and everybody was still, there weren't as all these spaces to really talk about it. We were basically having to talk about it in a white space like Indiecade. And so people were just really nervous, and we were like planning to do some big digs at like white feminism and all these other things. And some of those digs were specifically geared towards people that would be at Indiecade, because we wanted them to hear the problems that we had. We can't say names, but we can say situations. And then, you know, my colleague, Naomi Clark, friend, person I love, was like, hey, I have this friend, Latoya. Can she be on this panel? And we were just more like, man, we've been planning and working on this so hard. It was not about like, because I was like, I don't know who this person is, but the other thing was more like,
notice him explaining now. Notice him explaining. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain it because it was like because you came at it being like, man, they were like suspicious of you, but it was not that. It was that we had done so many walkthroughs of this talk, and everyone was so uncomfortable still. You know, I was trying to be like, hey, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna say some hard things. So then Latoya came in and she made everybody feel super comfortable. She took us out to like lunch, and then you explained how like fundraising worked in like a sentence or something, and it like blew my mind. And then we were all like, oh, like great. Like we all, I think, felt immediately comfortable as soon as we met you, right? Like, because it was like you were a wild card. We just didn't know like what was going to happen. And then once you showed up, we were like, oh yeah. And then when we had our panel, like it was great because it was everybody from a lot of different perspectives, and that was awesome. But like, again, I think Latoya, actually, you showed the best way to endear people. Like, you know, you got to come to them at their level. And like, you came like as like a thank you, you know, because like a lot of people come at people, because like even Indiecade came at us being like, we want you to give this panel. And it was like uncomfortable, right? We're like, we don't necessarily know if we want to give this panel. We were trying to change the name from like Racing Games, and we never came up with a new title because we're all so busy. We're all professionals doing our own thing. And so you came and you knew how to talk to people and how to come in and say, I know I'm not normally like in this space. I'm not like a game maker right now. But like, I would like to be on this panel. And, you know, thank you for having me. And you were very like, and that made everybody feel better. And that's like the thing that everybody, when they come into spaces, should do. But of course, somebody with your talent and your knowledge base and everything, you knew exactly how to come to people, especially like, you know, like Natasha, Charlene, like who like, you know, people that are like broke and don't know about like, you know, don't have money for lunch, like someone coming in and be like, let me buy you your food. It's like, that's awesome. Like that everybody is like, it's just the easiest way to like normalize everything for everybody. And especially because everybody had to put up their own money to get to this event. So it was like, you know, it was a really good experience and a great lesson for like, yeah, open your mind, Shawn. And that was like the beginning of, I guess, like, you know, the solidarity thought of trying to like meet anybody who's willing to be down for the cause, essentially.
This is why it's my favorite story. I love it so much. We've gone on to have so many fantastic shenanigans from my end. Yeah, they were a little hostile walking in that room. They did not know, obviously, that me and Naomi and N-Guy had gone up at South by Southwest and did a whole talk on, ooh, you got your social justice in our video games. Yeah. And again, this is pre-Gamergate. So we all just debated it, had everything, had a beer, went home. There was nothing else that happened after that panel. We was chilling. Little did we know what was going to be unleashed later.
And then 2014 was also that year, too. That's the thing. I mean, it's funny because I actually like, not to, but this is something I actually been thinking about recently, is that like I kept thinking about like, you know, like when when Eric Garner was killed and there was Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, and Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and everything, I was like, where was the industry's reaction to there? And I was like, oh yeah, Gamergate happened like right after all that stuff. and derailed the whole industry.
It was kind of simultaneous. I think it was like really happened in tandem. In August 2014.
Yep.
I think that's when Anita had the tropes versus women and the attacks, like the Gamergate attacks happened. But that was also Mike Brown, Canfield Drive, Ferguson, Missouri. Those things happen like in tandem with one another. And I think a lot of times, you know, those conversations, I'll say got derailed. Because, like, I mean, for so many people during that time, you know, Latoya was one, you know, I'm thinking about like all the writings from folks like during that time. There was like, and I think it actually was taken wrong by a lot of, I'll say the white feminists, like in the gaming industry. You know, we were like, people are getting killed. Like our folks are like getting killed. We're not trying to, because there was a pretty powerful like forum and some of the Xbox Live forums, you know, that were happening like back in the day. And then they were saying we were derailing the conversations because we need to be focused like on this harassment. This was before they got really serious. Like there was no doxing or like really in-person like harms. And we were like, no, these conversations can happen at the same time. We can do all of this at the same time. Now, I don't want to talk about all that stuff because that's not why we ain't here to talk about that stuff.
That's digital history. But it's also the fun. Like I said, I met Shawn, I met Kat, I met Charlene, I met Alicia. Like that was an all-star. In terms of things I have invested my time in, that's definitely up in like the top 5 in terms of outcomes of a panel. Like Indiecade, I had never been. I don't think I've been back, but like I just went to that one.
But you went and had that classic iconic moment. Like that's like the OGs fantastic. In the game. Whenever we think about
I went to the West though. I went to the East one. So I never got to West, but I did go to East and shot for the documentary for Girl Gamers. That's where I did that. And that's when we almost shut down the hotel when I was trying to cook for y'all.
Wait, what?
The hotel didn't have enough electricity to run the oven and the microwave at the same time. Do you remember?
Latoya, wait a minute.
Shawn, you were here. And the hotel, like you came. I was so appreciative because we were trying to like cook meal for all the Hungry Game devs. Oh yeah. And they had a kitchen.
Oh
my God. But it was the middle of winter. And so the kitchen shorted out half the power to the hotel, and it came all y'all. And the shop was like, "It's y'all fault for not wiring this place properly." I was like,
"Oh my God, that's hilarious!"
Winter in Manhattan, and not Manhattan, Queens. That's
Queens. Yeah, by the Museum of the Moving Image.
We were like cooking food for all the game devs who wanted to bring in. Everybody just brought like a little bit of stuff, stone soup style, and then the power went out because they didn't have enough power to run all that shit at the same time.
If only they would have worked on the infrastructure. I don't think they have.
Boys were all mad at us for like trying to cook in the kitchen.
How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, so the shenanigans.
That's such a beautiful model, though, and like we don't give Latoya like enough praise. I feel like in these industries, because think about just even that story that you share. You know, I wasn't aware of that story and where y'all got connected from. But I'm just thinking about how you said that. That was like a model. You know, Latoya could have easily have come in there with some different kind of energy, but Latoya's like, I'm gonna come in here and just do the thing that I do, and then it created an instant iconic moment. Y'all trying to cook food like for folks like who does that? In any other space, when have you ever seen something like that? You know, just that model of care and that ethic of care that, I've seen so many folks like have. So thank you, Latoya. We need to sing your praises while you here. Go ahead, Shawn. Go ahead.
No, then even, like years later, like Latoya was like my savior in the sense, like, I don't know if she even realized it, but like after like the end of 2014, it's funny, it's such a small amount of time, but in 2015, there was became like the head of Fusion. And you were like, Shawn, I want you to write an article. I want you to write an article. We're going to give you like a decent amount of money, like for this article about like making games or whatever. And it was a hard fought thing, but like I was actually in a place where I was trying to find a publisher for the game and not really having a good thing. I had gotten separated from my now ex-wife, and I was basically, I had to leave like affordable housing to try to find money to pay for like really unaffordable housing in a fake bedroom in Brooklyn. Like I was in a room that had no external window, so technically not a bedroom. And that was like a third or a quarter of my rent for that month. And it was just like, it came at the exact right time. And it was just like, hey, I want you to do this thing. Because again, like also the same thing, just going to people and saying, I want you to do this thing based on your expertise is like the most important thing. And not just, hey, I want you to put yourself in a corner. They're like, hey, we want you to introduce this concept to our people. And that's like the the best way to do it. And then we had that whole fun time with the future might be funny, with Hari Kondabolu and Jay Smooth and Cheska Lee and Amir Rahman, and then the white man in the fur coat.
Yes,
came up.
Wait, what is this?
There's a panel. There's a panel.
I was trying to tell you.
So there's like an amazing, funny panel, with like all those comedians and like it's like that was like Francesca Ramsey, right? Like years ago, where like before a whole lot of stuff happened. It's like and they had this whole great like panel, and then at the end a white guy came up and he was like, you're all being really aggressive about this whole race thing. Can I give you the definition of race? And Hari was like, no. Are you saying that race isn't real? Because we know it's a social construct.
It was the most unmitigated gall I have ever seen in my life to roll up to five prominent race experts and be like, y'all have this all wrong. Me as a white man in this Macklemore coat. Me.
Then he put on a fur coat. He put on a fur coat and like a pimp hat. He had like a feather in it. And then he just said, you're being aggressive. And he put on his coat and he left. And I took pictures of this. Like everybody took pictures of this. Like there was like just...
No one would believe this if we didn't get the pictures. Actually,
there's no way I would ever believe y'all. This sounds too wild. I forgot
about Macklemore pimp coat.
Yeah, where was this at? Now what was that?
That was at the new school.
Did you make him a villain in one of the games? One of us needs to put him in the game as like a villain.
I was gonna say, is he like one of the folks that I can fight and like beat down in Treasure City? Like, is that
battle rap him?
We're still. I mean, maybe we gotta, because like I got a big update coming up, so maybe we gotta put. I got a lot of. There's a lot of things in there. It's
Well, tell me about a game. Is it okay to talk? Can we talk about beat down Treasure City? Do you have capacity or bandwidth? Okay. Because first, I haven't beat it yet. I got it's a hard game. I'm gonna say it's a hard game, and I think it's hard because it's platforms that it's not my go-to platforms. But I would love, because I just heard you say, you're updating games and also things that are still happening like around the come up. Like a lot of us who are not in development and design, we don't realize that the game is really never done. Is that a fair thing to say? Or help me understand that, especially with patches and updates.
Yeah.
Is there? Go ahead.
Yeah, with Treasure Beatdown City, we're it's a slight spoiler, but it actually, the end of the game as it stands right now is actually.
Do we save Obama? Do we save Obama?
You get to City Hall and something happens that is unexpected, and there's a to be continued. And
cliffhanger.
And a big part of it was that like I had been working on this game and I said, we're going to give you like 40 plus enemies, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like working on it. And I think at the end of one of the years or something, I was just like, I need to wrap this up. Like I need to do something. So then like we just shipped with a cliffhanger, and we were like, let's see what people say. Because also, we just needed to ship and start selling copies of the game and seeing if people, were really going to latch onto it. And it was, it's a good thing we did, because we literally finished up the last time I met, because I worked with the programmer Nico in a lot of cafes around the city. And the last time we met at a cafe was like in February, right before we submitted to CERT of 2020. And then I've never personally entered a cafe since, because COVID, right? Like, so like literally, if we hadn't gotten it done, because like we needed that in-person time, it just made everything work a lot better. And we submitted it to Nintendo, and that takes like a month for them to, like accept it. And then a whole lot of things happened, and, we didn't get a lot of the promotion that we expected, but thankfully, I don't know, the game had like a very weird year with 2020. Like, we got featured in the LA Times, partially because the guy, like I was talking about like the fascist cops in the game, and the guy from LA Times like read my tweets and said like, oh, I want to interview you because I played the game and I really liked it. And, it's like, again, if it hadn't been like that's such a weird year, like, I don't know, like I might have gotten more exposure, but not from the people who cared about the political elements. Like, I don't know. It was a strange thing, but like, we do have like a big update and there's an end to a story and we want that done. And, you do, especially for like a game that's a linear game that has a story, it does end at some point. And it's just more like, there's a thing that everyone has to learn, that it's like, you got to ship something at some point. And like, so that was kind of like let's just do this, because there are 40 enemies in here. Now there's going to be more. Like now with the next episode, it's like we're paying for more music to be made, more of all this stuff. It's not like we were shortchanging anybody. They just weren't getting necessarily the story ending. But the interesting thing is we actually got a lot of people who, when they finish it, they're like, oh man, I can't wait for more. And that's pretty cool. That's a cool feeling. I haven't really gotten anybody who's like yelled at me and been like, hey, like this wasn't enough or whatever. So that's yeah. So like, there's definitely different types of games. And for a story game, you do want to end it and you do need to pack it up and put it away at some point. And depending on like, once we figure out that there's no more game breaking patches, because like once we shipped the episode 1 bit, we did have some patches that we had to do. We put like localization in there. There was a lot of updating over the course of the first year, but we haven't done an update since because there are no game breaking bugs right now. There was one bug that like Nintendo didn't even catch, which was a save file bug where the game would freeze if the save file was on like the Switch, but the patch was on the memory card. If they were separate, then the game would freeze, but if they were put on the same place, so then we had to still patch it to fix it. But yeah, so single player games end.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I see that as totally different than like the come up. Right. Yeah. So my feeling and my experience is like with the come up is like, it's like almost like the Sims, that I'm constantly, I got to be in there to develop and to, grow and like practice and like do all the things. That's, my feelings like with the come up. So it's like a totally different vibe and a totally different kind of game.
And then even just from, I'm listening to Shawn being like, seasoned game developers and how they talk, because
right.
Let me tell you, when my new self rolled up in here, we're like, we're going to make a free to play. I was like, yeah, sure. Cool. That sounds great. Whatever. Who knows? What's a free to play? Sounds great. Mobile thing. Nobody told me that meant for the rest of my life. Like, until we stop this license, there's just so much that has to get done all the time. You're always pushing patches. You're always pushing updates. You're always, new things are breaking. New things are breaking in the store. All of this, like, a lot of, when we went to go get initial investment, a lot of investors and publishers were like, oh, free to play. No. Right. And now I'm like, I see.
Really?
Well, because there's a lot of pieces to it and there's a lot of parts to it. And like, what Shawn was saying is so important. We're like, one, people say done is better than perfect. Let me tell you, shipped is better than theoretical at all times, right? Let somebody play your game and tell you what they like, because you could spend the rest of your life tinkering and messing with stuff. And it's supposed to be like this. And I want it to be like this. And what about this? But at some point you either run out of money, run out of time, or you have to do something, and you need to know how people are actually dealing with your game. And so with us, like, we had to yeet that game into existence. Let me tell you, like, this journey, okay? Shawn was talking about this 2014 stretch where your life went, woo. For me, that was like 2019, where your life was just going, woo. This is nothing I could do.
Because in the midst, now give me the COVID timing for this.
Yes, for COVID timing. Okay, so it's funny. This is today is Glow Up Games' 3rd year anniversary. This is our 3rd year in business. I realized that when I was filing our taxes. I was like, shit's corporate tax time. It was our EIN. Oh, wait. We're incorporated February 11th, 2019. Wow. Right? What a time. So we had been talking about the game. We've been pitching the game. We weren't really like an entity or anything. And then we became an entity. And then, so 2019 was us hustling. Like, can we get investment for this game? What can we do? Let's build out this pitch. Let's talk to folks. Let's get the shareholders. How do we build a team? What are we going to do? And then in February of 2020, so it's funny, like that. I feel like for all of us, there's that before times freeze frame where you're like, what were you doing in February 2020 before you realized life was about to change forever? We were pitching to Issa. We were showing her the first version of the build. So we had flown out to LA. We're over here shaking in our boots, right? Because it's, it's the usual game dev stuff. Stuff's not finished. Things were breaking. Everybody's screaming. Okay. And then on top of it. So usually with a video game, you're making an original IP. That's generally the way that you should go if it's your first time or your second time or your third time rodeo even. You're making your own IP. You're not working with somebody else's IP. In this case, this was the first game I had worked on, first game that Samus had worked on. Just for those who don't know, Anango Lumumba Kasango, aka Samus, freshest rapper alive, deafest rapper alive. I'm just going on that.
Hey.
I'm aware there's some other more famous people, but in our set, I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
Best rapper alive. Right. So the most you want to talk to, best rapper alive. So Samus. But we had gone out, it's me, Samus, and Mittu. And, Samus was the rap director of our game, had designed this whole mechanic. We had never tested it really heavily before this point. And so we flew out, we did the pitch to Issa, super high stress. And then also extra high stress because now we had to freaking pitch our story to Issa Rae. It wasn't like we just had to be happy with it. No. Issa had to be happy with it. Did we hit the notes that she put on this, I don't know, cultural landscape defining show? Pressure couldn't have been higher. So it was a lot of stress. So we get it. We nail a pitch. She's happy. We met her folks at Inglewood. It was fantastic. And we took a little photo at her cafe, the Hilltop, which is in Inglewood. Highly recommend if you go. Delicious. Get one of the special lattes. Get yourself a breakfast bowl. Bomb. Anyway, so we were there, and they have a little sign in the front that says, "What a time to be alive." And so there's the three of us under that thing, exhausted, a little battle weary, what a time to be alive. Absolutely. That was the last time we all left the house. It was, we were home, and then this pandemic was popping. And we had to steer a brand new business in the pandemic, a startup. We had all these funding commitments lined up. We had just come off of winning a pitch competition. We were all hyped. Boom, all that shit vanished overnight. Things disappeared. Global credit markets locked up. Later would unlock for gaming, but it unlocked for gaming to certain people in specific contexts, not necessarily us. So, and then we were going through this pandemic like everybody else and trying to just survive. We lost a whole bunch of team members, had to kind of rebuild that one from the studs, from the ground up. We had to go with, oh my God, there's just so many things. We went through Techstars, through an accelerator, the first ever virtual one, because it was nobody who could do no one knew anything. My son got sent home from school. I'm over here trying to virtual learn and be in Techstars and start this company. These years was a lot, right? And so we got out the other side, and then, for everyone, things were changing. So when we had signed the contract with HBO, we were firmly in season 3. Stuff was on the up. They had all these options out. And we started noticing the cast was kind of okay, we might want to do something else. And so they had an option for season 5 and season 6. And so we had missed season 4 for our first launch, and we had planned, we're okay, we're going to come back stronger, pandemic, we can fix this. Let's come out hard, try to hit season 5. And then they announced season 5 is the last season. That's it. They're not going to do the option for 6. And, Shawn is over here going, because when your game dev is already stressful before you're trying to make somebody else's deadline. So then we're like, oh, this is it. God. Oh, no. So series of decisions later. So we're over here going, okay, what can we cut? What can we do? What can we do? Because the other problem is blow up games. We're very focused on serving, basically one, celebrating stories about Black and brown joy. Number one, first and foremost, always. But number two, in serving what we call the underrepresented majorities in gaming. All of these folks who are women and players of color who generally aren't even seen, aren't thought about, aren't the people in personas. That's who we care about. And so we didn't know that if we launched the game outside of Cycle after the show ended, would it work? That worked for Game of Thrones. It's Game of Thrones. Of course we want to play that game still. But for us, for Issa's thing, we didn't know. And so we were what's more important right now, to ship the game that we wanted to ship 100% with everything in and everything that we love? Or are we going to make a strategic decision to ship an early access build, give people a taste, see if they even like it, see if we've been on the right track for all these years, and try to capitalize on the little bit of stuff before all the cast runs away, before everybody starts forgetting what this was? And so that's how we ended up.
So y'all on set, the scenes that we just saw, that was y'all on set. That was the first time, the folks a part of the show saw the game.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
When you saw us at
Okay.
Insecure Fest.
Well, that was like real content. Y'all right
real.
there.
That was
Florence showing folks.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, that was all. So Issa has been, Issa's been part of things. And Issa was actually one of our first angel investors. So like Issa cut us a check. Like Issa is, when she's rooting for everybody black, she means it. Issa is the bomb. So, Issa, her crew, but like the other, like Lawrence, like all they did was sign a likeness agreement and kind of go back and forth on their character models, but they hadn't seen how the game shaped up or what the storylines were going to be, any of those things. So like that was for us amazing because it's a genuine moment, right? Like when Jay Ellis was doing like the live, he was like the live Instagram live host again. So he was sitting, he was like, "Oh, is this me in the game?" He came over like right away. We're like, "Yes." He was like, "Oh, this is so cute. Look at me. Oh my God." Like he was like, "Look at this. Oh, what the rap." Like it was just so good to see how amused they were. Like Neil, who plays Chad, came over, Yvonne. Like it was just so wonderful for them to actually see what had happened and for them to react so well. And so, there's a lot of stuff I think we would have definitely done differently had we known a global pandemic was coming, had we known how stuff was going to play out, had we known funding was going to be. There were so many lessons that we learned from this one, but definitely don't regret just kind of like at one point we were just like, okay, this might look bad, but let's just throw it into the store, right? And overwhelmingly, people have been feeling it, which is fantastic. Like again, when we work on it, like we see all the flaws. I'm like, I hate this, want to change this, right? But to hear people come back, "Oh, I love this. I just got stuck over here." And like, we got so many reviews. We're like at a 4.7 for a little ass studio. We're at a 4.7 in the App Store, but there's a lot of people being like, "Yeah, it was fun as hell for it, bro." It was so nice that they were like, they're willing to be on this journey with us. Some people think it's Issa, so we were getting some halo effect from that, but it's been the game dev journey is definitely not for the faint of heart. But as Shawn was saying, like there's a complete journey when it's single player. At some point the journey has to end, and then you can have patches and you can extend it, but that's what it is. And when you're in this like new world of free to play or live updates, honestly, for like the bigger titles, people just kind of expect there to be new stuff all the time for their investment into the game, and we're kind of like in that weird in between stage where it's like, yes, we're going to be pushing more updates, we're going to be pushing new things, but also all those things take time, money, cost, and it's just a balancing act.
I love that. And something you brought up, and the fact that this is Issa and how closely connected Issa is to music, and then what you brought up with music. Like, I don't think we talk enough about how important and significant like music is for games. Like, I remember like when I play like Beatdown, there was that dope song that it was made specifically for Beatdown, right, Shawn?
Yeah. What's your favorite track, Shawn, from Beatdown? What's your favorite track?
Well, I mean, so yeah, like the soundtrack is like my baby. Inverse Phase is an amazing musician that I just heard. He actually did a cover of like CeeLo Green's "Fuck You" like in chiptune form, and I found that, and it was because I was actually working on like a little video of like I made an animated video for like this like production thing that was on YouTube. Somebody was like, "Hey, you want to put a little animation from your game in here?" So I had to animate like, and it was like a joke from a game that still really wasn't put together. And I was like looking for a song, and I found this cover, and then I was like, "Oh, maybe we could work together." And then the first full track that we did was the 2-minute intro, where it was like I didn't know if we were going to make a game. I just was like, "Oh, let's just make an animated intro." And I was still really bad at pixel art. So the intro, I have like a million versions of it where it just keeps getting better and better and better and better as I'm like really learning the craft of like drawing like pixel art, and then realizing that at some point it's going to have to scale down to 1 pixel, and there can't be 1 and 2 pixels like next to each other, because if you scale them up, they're going to look really weird. I had to learn all that. That was like a couple of years of just working on that intro on the side, like before there was like a game. And it was again like a 2-minute epic intro. That was like one of my favorite songs. But then when we were working with it's funny because like talk about Samus, it's like Samus and like Open Mike Eagle are like crew, right? Like they're on songs together, and
they are squad.
They got that song Hymnal together. Huh?
It's like them and Mega Ran. Like, don't they all tour together?
They're all they were
like next year?
I mean, Samus was on tour with like Open Mike Eagle, and they would all get in their van and like drive together. I remember we all hung out after a show at Rough Trade in Brooklyn. And yeah, they were all, you know, Samus, Mega Ran, and Open Mike Eagle and Davion Gooden, like they were on the panel Hip Hop and Gaming that I put together to talk about like the intersection of games and hip hop. And you know, actually Davion was like the only person that was like someone I didn't know that well, and I was just like, oh, your game looks really good, and I wanted to have another dev on there to talk about that. So, but just one day after a concert, I saw like a Kickstarter had like a stretch goal of like a Mega Ran song and like an Open Mike Eagle song, and like Open Mike Eagle, like somebody I just saw in concert one day opened for another group, and I like fell in love with everything he did, like his comedic presence in at like just one guy on stage with a laptop can like have the whole crowd like just because he's like telling jokes, like his advice channel and everything. So yeah, I mean, after a show one day, I had the game on my Switch, and I was like, hey, like I saw on like a Kickstarter that you might do like a song for another game, and that Kickstarter like didn't hit its number. It was like a fighting game, and fighting games are really hard to get money for. And I was like, would you do a song for this? Like, you know, what's the cost, et cetera, et cetera. And by that point, I had been able to make sure I had some money to work on the project. I had to take out some personal loans towards the end of the Treachery Beatdown City development. And so, but that meant I had a bit more money and I could actually put money into things. So I was like, oh, cool. And like, I got a beat, and the beat is based on the battle theme, which is called Energetic Fist. And that was the second theme. And like all of these songs, my prerequisite was it had to be something I could listen to forever. Because like I can listen to the Ninja Turtles soundtrack or the Zelda soundtrack or the Super Mario Brothers soundtrack forever. Like these like 15 to 1 minute long loops are perfect. Like I can listen to Street Fighter, to so many games that just have these timeless soundtracks and that have perfect loops, that have perfect timing and everything. So like that 2 minute intro was like something we worked on a ton, and then it just set the tone for the rest of the soundtrack. And like Energetic Fist, like the fight, it's like you hear this fight music every fight, right? So it's like it's got to be something that you hum. And so Too Mellow, the beat maker, was like, yeah, let me work off of this track. And that was where the Beatdown City, We Gonna Whoop Your Ass came from, with the Open Mike Eagle. Just like when he gave me the lyrics, like
wonderful.
I teared up because I was like, I really wanted like a rap song for the game. Also, and then we put together a remix because I kept trying to talk to my boy, this guy Clinton, so Show You Suck out of California. He's actually a rapper who taught me a little bit about like work ethic, because I saw him at a show in Brooklyn where he has like a song called Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, which was a remix. He used like a Pusha T beat to like rap over, and like, so that's how I kind of found out about him. And he was really pushing his music on Twitter and like reaching out to people and seeing if they were going to come to this show in Brooklyn. And so I went to that show, and it was while I was gearing up for my Kickstarter. I was barely sleeping those days, so I was so tired, but I was like, I'm going to go to the show. And there were like 12 people at the show that like Show You Suck and a few of his crewmates and some other groups had driven all the way across from the Midwest. They drove from there to New York to do this show. And there were like 12 people in the audience at Baby's All Right. And Show You Suck and his boy Augie the Ninth, who also became one of my favorite rappers, these indie rappers that just like put on a show like they had 1,000 people in the audience for 12 people. And that showed me that, like, you know, as an independent artist, one of the important things is you got to play like there's always 1,000 people out there, because you could get in your head and be like, ah, man, nobody's checking this out. But it's like, nah, man, just keep pushing, because then I saw like Show You Suck and Augie the Ninth at like a sold out concert in Chicago, where there was like stage diving. It was the wildest thing. It was the like most packed thing you could go to. So it was like, they're used to those things. They toured with DMX at one point. They did all this stuff, but like they just do the show wherever they go. And I was like, yeah, as an indie dev, that was important. So then we got Show You Suck on the remix, which was great because like these are just two rappers that I really look up to. and that, yeah, they're doing their creative thing. And I was just like really happy to get them on board. And so, yeah, we got to make that song, and yeah, it was like doing pretty well on like Spotify and Apple Music and stuff, like just streaming wise. Like, it's just nice to be able to be like, a lot of people listen to this. And then we got like a lot of Open Mike Eagle, like crossover fans who were like, oh man, I want to check out this game. So it's cool.
I love that. I love this so much. And one of the things that like you got, as I was thinking, especially for game developers, this might be a tough thing. But I guess the question that I want to know, and also I don't want to take up all your time because I know we need to like start to wind down. But do y'all play your own games, or do you just work on your game? Like, is that a weird question to ask? Do y'all like, are you able to play it like for fun, or do you always have like that lens on of like critiquing, trying to figure out what's wrong? Or do you have moments of joy, like with your game? Like, oh, I love this. Look, like I did this. I'm that bitch today. I did this. Like, do you have that?
You know, I think for us, it's such a collective project, and we're not finished. So we are still very much in the thick of like, why is this happening? Right. And so like, you know, we play it, and then you play it, and you play it, and you play it, and you play it. My running joke is that, so I wrote a lot of the early stuff in the game I wrote. So like I wrote all the jokes, I wrote all the stuff, and I've seen it so much, I started to hate it. I was like,
I get it.
I think this shit is not even funny. This is so corny, like whatever. It's like, there's a joke at the very beginning of the game where you're like giving your name. And I just put in this dumb joke that was like, yeah, but my rap name's little, like, and it's supposed to be like, it fills in your player name, Alicious. Right. And it's this whole like awkward conversation with Issa. And so after I saw that, after like 700 times of replaying that thing, I was like, I hate this. Is so corny. This is so stupid. I didn't think about the game. And when we started playtesting, thank goodness for playtesting, that was like everybody's favorite. That was the first laugh of the game every single time. Like people love that line. So I was like, okay, I'm glad I didn't take it out. But yeah, I think as a creator, you get kind of sick of your own stuff after a while. And I find the stuff that I love in the game is things that I didn't handcraft. It's like the stuff that came together kind of beautifully. I think it's funny. And the bloopers I didn't realize, like the stuff that was an accident that becomes canon. I did not realize how big of a deal this was in game development. But like we used to have, God, so many things. We used to have, we have a bartender in the game. So you go to the bar pretty frequently and there's always a bartender. And there was a glitch where the bartender was always dancing. Like no matter what you were doing, we could not get him to stop dancing. So like the bartender was always in the back pumping his fist up. Like no matter what was happening or the conversations, we were like, damn. So like weeks go by, we're like fixing this thing. The bartender's still partying. Like, what is going on? And then we fixed it. And then we go, like a week passes. And I think it might've been Owen. Somebody, they were like, I feel like we stole the bartender's joy. Like, it feels weird. He's not partying all the time no more. And it's like these things that keep going. And then it turned out in playtesting, this bartender character, this little throwaway character we made, everybody thought he was cute. So bartender bay is like a thing. Wow. People like want to talk to the bartender. Like the way your players act in your game is very different than I think the way you envisioned it. And that is normally awesome. It's just one of those things of like trying to bring all those things together. But yeah, the things that I like the most are generally, like, honestly, I'm such a Samus fangirl, even though like we have been friends for so long. It's ridiculous at this point to be like, we fangirl, we go like squad Kiki, her and her husband came by and visited, come see the kids, right? But like, it's, I don't know, when Anango becomes Samus, I feel like there's like the whole like Beyonce Sasha Fierce thing, right? Like there's a transition that happens and then I'm like a fan again, which is really fun to feel. And like just seeing her process through this, and her like finding a way to like, one, how do you make rhymes mechanical? How do you get them into zeros and ones so a computer understands it? How do you get context and smush context and slang into a computer operated system? Like these things were ridiculous and unsolved problems until, you know, Samus and Ethan Red, who also another dope ass Black developer who was our original founding art director and who is now running his own studio at Virtuoso, but still Globe fam. They kind of like really, rock that out together and tried to figure out, okay, like what is the thing that actually makes this work? But I also got to see a lot of like, you know, side process. So there's bars that I love that never made it into the game that, you know, I still have in my head half the time. Like I'm walking around, like there was one we did for the trailer for investment. And this was back when Samus was voicing all the rap. So we eventually went away from that model to let the player have their own experience. But in the very, very beginning, Samus rhymed everything. So we didn't have the little like rap-ish little wah thing that we're doing now. But she just had this line where it was talking about a failed relationship. And she was like, I was out here thinking of marriage, but now you ain't watching your manners. So I'm finally raising my standards. And it was just so good. And then like the bars, Sam's always got bars. And then the next line was like, I don't be up at the disco, but I'm steadily feeling them panics. And I'm like, number one, I watched that so much, it's ingrained in my like soul at this point. And I'm like, oh. But like just being able to like be witness to other people's creative process and to see like all the different pieces that go in, right, from an art direction standpoint, from a system design standpoint, from monetization design standpoint. How do you get loops? How do things feel sticky? Like all of those things weren't stuff that I was up close on until I started getting into a game. And now I'm just like, I find myself in awe of other people's process. And it's always nice when they tell me they like the writing. But yeah.
I love that. Shawn?
Yeah, I mean, like Treasure Beatdown City is like such a close thing to me that if I wasn't liking it, like I just had to play it forever. Like I have a picture basically leading up to release. I was playing it on my Switch like every day because anywhere I'd go, it was like play test time. Got to play through the game. Got to make sure everything feels good. Got to make sure, the writing's good, similar. And yeah, like I think the game has a lot of like I have a lot of points where I laugh. I don't play the game, I don't play the game for fun, like on the side, but it's because I have logged hundreds of hours just play testing it myself. And so it's like but I play other games a lot to compare and contrast. And then I'm like, yeah, this game's not as good as mine. This game's not as good as mine. This not as good as mine. And it's actually the inverse. But I do listen to like the Welcome to Beatdown City EP, like on loop for like hundreds of hours. Cause it's still just one of my, like, I remember when I had the demo for it. That's why I like the music, like for me, like making extensions, like listening to, I can listen to the soundtrack is like one of the most important things, like that I can just vibe out to and just, I know this song and I can work to the game. Like I can work on art to the game, listening to the song. And, we're about to get into a lot of play testing for new features and stuff. So, it's all about like making sure that, that's the time that I play the game. I can't really play it like outside because I got other stuff to do at some point, but like, again, it's like hundreds of hours in. And then there was an instance where I was playing the game a lot and did not realize that there were like no punchlines in a lot of the cutscenes and like certain characters weren't introduced correctly and stuff like that. So I actually rewrote most of the game script like 2 weeks before we put it into cert, and it was funny then. And it was like all like I just really, because you got to really like sometimes take that time to really it's like to Latoya's point, like I mean, again, and being around like comedians and folks like these like again, like we were around this group of very smart people doing this panel, and it's like I've talked to Hari Kandabalu where he told me about like how he changes punchlines because even if he doesn't feel comfortable or he does it. And that was actually 2015 was a magical time because I just went to comedy shows all the time. I actually started going to comedy shows. Like I started going like the Night Train hosted by Wyatt Cenac the night that my ex said she wanted us to get separated after. Then my boy, who I used to work at Rockstar with, and he was there for like 3 months and he quit because he hated it. And because he's a real legit like director and stuff. He's like, I can just go. He texted me that night and he was like, yo man, what are you up to? I'm like, I got nothing. He was like, yo, you want to go see this comedy show? I was like, yes, I do. And I just basically got home off the train and got right back on the train and went out to Brooklyn to go to see like, so like the comedy was really, so like, I play my game and I like read that stuff all the time. And until I laugh and my wife laughs and my programmer laughs and like groups of people laugh, those are the time. I also really like watching people play the game. As a game designer, you really start to enjoy that. And that was also even for the writing, like you see people laugh, you see that stuff, that's actually the stuff that makes me feel like I'm on the right path. Cause even if I'm enjoying it, that's the one thing that I'm like sad about, and is like is like you can't go to events anymore that much. So it's like, how are you going to get to see people playing your game? The interesting thing is people are playing it right now, like doing streaming. Seeing a bunch of like Black streamers who have been playing the game recently who were like, oh, like one guy was like, yeah, I just finished episode 1. Really liked it. Can't wait for the next thing. And I was like, wow, that's cool to see that. I know it's all happening because of Black History Month, but I'm always Treasure Beatdown City is the thing I'm most proud and most nervous about, because it's like, I know it's not like a perfectly honed, like it's not a 9, because a 9 is not interesting to me. Also, like 9s are games that people grouse about a ton of it, but they're like, oh, the hard edges are all sawed off, so let's give it a 9 because it's easy to play, even if like the writing's bad or the cutscenes are bad or there's racism or sexism. They're like, yay, but it was easy to run down this corridor and rip someone in half, so 9. And my game's like, the mechanics are a little obtuse and it's a little different than you're used to, and there's humor that turns off people. But it's not offensive. It's offensive to people who are angry about like calling out racists and stuff. But so like it's like something that like playing, I'm like, this is the game for me 100%. Like that's why we made Treasure Beatdown City, because I wanted that game. And I love that. I'm always happy when people vibe with it. And I'm always nervous. I'm always like, if someone plays it, are they going to hate it? Is an artist that I like going to play it and they hate it? And I don't know. It's like something to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's because a game project is like a little piece of yourself. I mean, all creative projects are. And like before I was in games, I was a writer and a documentarian, television producer. So I've, been creative for a while. But games are really different. Like I remember like now people are like, do you want to make this game? And I was like, fuck no. If I don't love that shit, I'm not doing it. No, like I need to love this game in my bones, because if I don't, it's too much. It's too like game development is too much of a disappointing process to go through for something that you don't love. And I mean, some people do it for profit, which is fine. That's a whole other thing. We're all mercenaries in some way. But like the feeling that you get when you've written something in, and like there's a lot of like things I weave into the story that are around like me and Mitsu's journey fundraising and dealing with VCs, friendships that have broken up, like being able to, like a lot of times when I felt like I wasn't getting a scene right or wasn't connecting with something right, it was because it wasn't personal enough. And like I have a really good friend, Felicia Pride. So Felicia, we were homies forever. And then when she was 35, she was like, fuck it, I'm moving to LA. I'm going to make my dream happen. Right. And she was like, just bet on myself. Right. And lo and behold, now she's writing for Queen Sugar, and she just had her first film picked up by Macro. It's called Really Love, which is super dope. She's had a screening in Baltimore. And she's writing for Grey's Anatomy now, and she's doing all this dope shit. But like when we were 35, and she was like, Toya, like if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. Like I just have to try for myself. But anyway, so that's Felicia. So she was on this podcast about screenwriting, and it was like one of the dopest things I've ever heard. I really appreciate, it's like the Script Writers Room or something. And she was just like, look, if you are not willing to tell the truth in your creative project, why are you even doing it? You're not ready. You can't do it. You're not going to be able to connect with people because you're not really telling the truth. If you're not sitting here like, oh, I was in my therapist's office last week and this is what happened. Like, if you aren't ready to get to that level of truth telling in your piece, it's going to be really hard to connect. And so it's interesting because, like, as Shawn said, when I think about the games I've loved the most, there are games that are perfect, that you love to play, that are just joyful experiences, that had, hundreds of millions of dollars in budget, hundreds and hundreds of different people working on that game. And those things are fun symphonies that we've enjoyed. But what games do you really love? Like, just think about the stuff you love. You can think about books too. You can think about music. And it's not always the best produced thing. A lot of times it's the thing that spoke to your heart at that moment. I always have a soft spot for Eternal Darkness. That is such a weird ass game. But it was like, it really spoke to me at 17. And like, every time I go back to it, I still love it. And I'm like, this is why I go to MagFest. So I can play all the retro games and not have to worry about like maintaining systems. But anyway, this is why I go do this. But like these things like speak to your heart in a certain way. And you're just like, damn, even if it's not perfect, it found you. And I feel like that's like the beautiful thing that gets so lost, especially like in the free-to-play space. Because like Shawn is still over in like the respectable premium game space. And free-to-play could be like what they want you to build for free-to-play is a whole bunch of just like UX mechanics that make people spend dollars. And like And we don't want to do that. And that makes it a little bit weird. You try to go get funding. They're like, what are you doing? Right. Trying to make a game of heart. What's wrong with you? Like, like it was, but for us, it was like, how are we telling stories about friendship? How are we telling these stories that mean something to us, that make us feel something? Because that, as an artist, is what I always want to do. I want people to feel provoked, right? Like I still think about, Shawn, you will laugh at me for this, but Shawn knows I'm a fighting games girl. My son is not he's a cozy games boy. So he does not like when I play fighting games. It's a whole other thing. We're going to have to work on this. I will get him. By the time he's 11, we won't be up to speed, but gotta ease him in. Anyway. But I'm a fighting games girl. And like, I still think about that breathless moment sitting in my dad's basement with my cousins. Cause we Black folks, we always play with our family, with my cousins, right? Battling shit out and getting those 20-second cutscenes at the end of your second fight, right? Anna and Nina with the spaghetti hair rolling by each other at the graveyard. They don't want to talk no more. I haven't played that game since 1990. What year is that? I think it was before 1997. Because I was like, okay, high school was 1997. I got to think about this. But I remember that stress and that feeling. I remember playing and playing and playing to be King of the Iron Fist so I could see this 20-second little slice of what was happening with this character that I identified with, right? And like, those are that feeling of victory and accomplishment that I won't say you only get in fighting games. Shawn, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I'll articulate this better, right? I feel like you and Pat, like, say this better than I'm trying to articulate it. Because
it's clear. We understand you perfectly.
Yeah, but it's like that feeling in a fighting game where you're getting like the minimum of like what a developer could squeeze in around like all the fights about mechanics, and still getting like that little bloom, little blossom of this is me, and this could be me, right?
I mean, the beat 'em up genre was started like by this guy Yoshihisa Kishimoto. He made this game. I don't want to butcher the Japanese name like I will, so I'll just call it the American name, like Renegade. But like the Japanese version was all school kids, whereas the American one was bikers, which was heavily influenced by like the biker movies of the America coming out, and they basically had to sell it like in Japan. You're a boy trying to your friend was beaten up and you have to defend his honor, whereas in America your girlfriend gets kidnapped by bikers and you have to go save her, which then ended up becoming Double Dragon because that's his series, and that's where beat 'em ups came from, because he loved Bruce Lee, he loved the like animation, he loved the being ganged up feeling. And if you play like Kung Fu like before that on like Nintendo or whatever, everybody dies with one hit. It's really boring. It's really annoying because it just has the sound that goes like what that every time you punch. Like, and in his game, it's like he's got like the whole you get grabbed from behind and you hit people and you kick them, and like the animation was really important. But it was like a personal game because he said he liked fighting in high school and like loved Bruce Lee movies, and that's just what he wanted to do. So like the fighting game genre, a sense like it grew in this personal way. So like, I mean, I don't really know necessarily, like, because the Street Fighter whole series is very interesting. But yeah, I always think those games are very intimate, which is why, again, I love this series. Like Fire Pro Wrestling is known for its intimate story. That's where Suda51 got his start. Actually, behind me on my shelves, there's like the first two games that Suda51 worked on that he signed for me. It was like, it was actually, I think, the year that his former boss died, the guy who was like the head of the Fire Pro games. And that was his first job. And he was like, wow, I haven't seen these games in a while. And so, yeah, it's just, you talk about those things, but it's like fighting games are a weird thing because people will give like a Street Fighter game a 9, but they won't actually even understand how the game works. It's really weird. I don't understand how the games industry rates fighting games, because they don't even, like, it's fighting game players who are the only people who can really tell you if is the game good or not. And that takes years. Like sometimes a game is good in hindsight, like 5 years later, you're like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a game people still play. But like people would give like the Xbox version like a 7, and they'd say, oh, this doesn't have enough new stuff. And people are like, yeah, but this is the only way to play it on Xbox. And this is the hottest game on the planet. Like, I want to be able to play this game in 20 years. Like, you can't give it a 7. It's like, it's great. Like, it's like, the industry, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like, there's a lot of beautiful messes, like similar, like Killer 7 is one of my favorite games. Eternal Darkness is also one of my favorite games. Blood Omen was one of my favorite games, which like was also messy Zelda basically, with weird hitboxes and like crashes and stuff. But it's like, but it told a story that felt very real. But yeah, like, and to your end, like free to play, like I've worked in free to play for the last 6 years for my day job, and yeah, it's like on that end, like I've had conversations with investors about free to play, and how it tends to be like soulless. It's like they want you to make like a zombie match 3 Viking game with like tower defense mixed in, and it's like it's just about whether or not you can get people to spend. And like I think it's really amazing that you're working on a game that has like a personal bent to it, and it's like trying to get people to feel something. Like that's important. And like that's because it's like you're doing this life game that's not like the weird life games where it's like, what if my grandmother's a serial killer, like all those weird ads that you
really
see
right now.
Because it's like, and it's like that's like one thing, but it's like literally probably just people putting words in a script and just putting it out in the world, and nobody cares about those things. And I'm sure they're making lots of money, but I think your side of like, let's humanize this stuff, let's create serialized stories. Like The Walking Dead was a serialized story that was episodic, didn't have a ton of interaction, but like people love it, right? Like and I don't know why it's like everyone wants to move away from that. And I just laud the fact that like when I played like I finally got like an iOS device, so I downloaded the Come Up, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. I get like all the notifications, and my wife sees the notifications, and she's like, because when we watch stuff together, she's like, oh, that's funny. She likes the notifications, which is a funny thing, because like even getting that, like that's a weird, like you're creating this weird ecosystem of stuff, right? You were saying like you got to make new updates, you got to do this, but like you got to do re-engagement. But then if you're doing it authentically, it has to stay authentic. It can't be like, hey guys, come pick up the purple thing. It has to still speak in a voice, and that's the challenge. And again, I laud all of you for taking on that challenge, and for shipping, because that's the hard thing. And you were saying like you had to ship, Supercell has to ship games. They ship games in Canada all the time that fail, that you could even look at them and you'd be like, that was a bad game, like why'd you even put that out on the market? And it'll fold within 3 months. But like you put out like something good, so I'm like, I'm really excited to see more.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, like, it's funny to talk about the text message notifications, right? Because again, it's like, what is the canvas of this? And we could annoy the hell out of the player being like, stamina, 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 which is what most of the free-to-play games on my phone do. One thing I want to do that we haven't been able to do yet, so it's a little sneak peek, is coming. It's coming. But one of the things that I want to do is I wanted to do like horoscopes from Kelly as like your notifications to come back into the game, where Kelly is giving you your horoscope every day.
That would be dope.
We haven't got it yet, but like it's in there's all these like cool things that are like in this like sub file that I have. I'm just like, oh, then we got to put this in whenever we can make this other thing work. And like it's all this like that mad scientist like gif of like the dude of all thing. That's us all the time. We're like, oh, and what about this thing that we can do? But yeah, I mean, it really is like this labor of love, and it's interesting. Like I know we're going to wrap up this podcast, but I feel like we can't talk about fighting.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I forgot. Like, I'm just sitting here just enamored with the story. I forgot.
We got to do the Black connection. We have to go all the way through this because, right, 1970s, every older Black person I knew was into Kung Fu. Everybody watched the movies.
Everyone.
Jim Kelly was the one Black samurai. I noticed because my dad, uncles, everybody was Kung Fu. We all watched The Last Dragon. The Last Dragon is on Insecure as the movie that they go see. Like, Absolutely. It is a big deal. And I watched this Netflix documentary on like Kung Fu movies, and it was all Black experts. And I was like, yes. Like,
I loved it.
It is such a like through line in terms of understanding like these different cultural influences. And, you could talk about POC solidarity or understanding each other. You could talk about the global economic world in the 1970s and what all these things tend to symbolize. But you could also kind of draw a line through the fighting games community, draw a line at the fact that the FGC is the Blackest esports community that there is.
That's right.
Of color one.
And even more of a testament to the 70s. Like, think about the most prominent movies of the 70s were martial arts movies and blaxploitation. Like, our people, we saved Hollywood with those movies. So I think it's a beautiful
in the 90s, and we're
always
saving them now. And
always saving them.
This fucking cycle that never ends, where they're like, oh, are we out of stuff? Black people have something.
Black people will save us.
That's what I pitch. That's what I talk to people. I'm just like, it's like blaxploitation. Yeah, it saved Hollywood and was abandoned, but like it saved Hollywood from the funny thing is like that it saved Hollywood from these big white produced AAA nonsense nightmares where they were like trying to sell you like a $40 like movie ticket to go to the road shows, right? Like it was like you could get like some special tub of popcorn. I don't know what it was, but you got some tchotchkes and you got a premium experience to some movie that nobody wanted to see. That was just like nonsense. Like it was like white cultural nonsense. And then people like turned around and said, hey, we can make these small, low budget, like movies where Black people fight cops and stuff again. And a similar, like you say the whole thing. And it's like, Treasure Beatdown City is very much geared towards that idea of like, the like you get to fight cops that are bad and like, and we make fun of them and we make it very obvious and take a stance on all that stuff. And it's like, blaxploitation stuff is like wrapped up in, everything that my company, New Challenger, is about thinking about that through line from blaxploitation up through, the unification of Kung Fu and the whole Black Asian, Black Chinese specifically, because actually I grew up like with a best friend who was Chinese and I would stay at his house all the time. And I remember when his grandmother gave me a rent envelope like for Chinese New Year one year, like that was like a wow, I like made it into the family type thing. And
yes, the red envelope was everything. Yes.
And then going back to Japan and like, I don't know. This is a whole other topic that I think we should all talk about one day and get like some people on, like I know Katsuhiro Harada, like the head of like Tekken, like, and we've like, been able to have like interesting conversations about stuff. You can't
see my face on this podcast. You just dropped that all casual and walked away.
We used to watch E3.
I'm like, let's do that.
We watched
I was like, okay, so Tekken 2 was the game that got me into fighting games.
Yeah.
And we go from, I have watched the anime. I'm not much of a fan. I watched the anime of Tekken. How you gonna just drop that on me, Shawn? Be like, yeah, it's not fun. And we just be chill. You can't do that.
Like, right. Like we
I joined a Japanese business leaders like exchange program, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool thing called USJLP. And my friend Yohei is the head. Well, in Japan they call him Sari-san, but he's the head of this literary agency called Cork, which does a lot of like the manga literary agents, stuff like that. A lot of those folks didn't make it over here, a couple did. But anyway, so Yohei was just talking casually one day about whatever. He's like, oh, you like Inflow? I was like, yeah. He's like, how'd you hear about Inflow? I was like, dude, shit. Like, I love Inflow. And he was like, Taka's my homeboy. I was like, you can just drop that on me. You can just say that. I was playing Persona 5 Dance in the Starlight at that time. And I was like, it's a Taka beat. Yes. Like, I was like, you can just drop stuff. So anyway, that is to say, Shawn, you can just drop stuff like that. Number one, when are we having a Black Game Devs retreat to Japan? Where are we going? We need Black Game Devs in Japan. Let's do this.
Yeah, I love it.
Happen.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Couple things that we're
okay, drop things. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know we got to drop this up, but I was like, I also just love that Japan is like a really fun place to have people who generally don't care about racism and understand suddenly really get the point really quickly. I was just sitting there waiting for a cab, and I was like, I ain't getting no cab, but y'all ain't either. This is fantastic. We're all gonna be stuck here together. Welcome
to my world.
You not like this? Does that feel bad? Are you mad that somebody switched their language, stopped talking to you? Let's think about this when we get home. Okay, we go back to America. I want you to remember this moment.
Oh my God!
When you felt all upset. I just want you to think about that. Let me hear you. Black Lives Matter. Let me hear you say it.
Say it loud for the ones in the back. Thank you.
Okay, did you not like how that felt? Multiply it. Anyway.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Okay. Plugs. Anything where you want folks to find you, find more about your work, plug all your things right now.
Plugs. Okay. Yes.
What you want us to do? What we need to go buy? What do we need to go download?
So
what do we need to check out?
Come and download the Come Up game. Now out for Android. Mostly. It's now on the Android store. It's in early access beta. So we're in beta launch on Android. And it's acting real beta. We were having all kind of beta problems just because Android has so much more to go through. I was like, oh no. So
it's acting real beta. That's the tweet for this episode.
They understand what we're trying to do because they've been like, y'all, I'm here with you, but can y'all get this together? Yes. So we're out on Android as of last week. We have a feature in the App Store and on Google Play. We have 2 different features, which is really, really cool. So you can download us in the App Store as well. Come through to @GlowUpGames. Our Discord is live. Our Instagram is live. Our Facebook is live. And they will actually, now that the game has shipped and we're not pulling our hair out, we're going to start to share our knowledge, the stuff that we learned the hard way over 3 years of trying to build this game, and more stuff to hopefully help get more folks into the industry. And then be on the lookout for some of our other cool projects that are in the works.
Awesome. Love that. Shawn, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter at Shawn, SHAWN AA. I actually separated myself from a New Challenger thing because New Challenger is like gonna be doing stuff and NU Challenger. And that's like kind of a dormant account right now. We're posting random Dragon Ball Z powering up gifts here and there to kind of be like, we're here, but we're preparing to Kamehameha right out of the bag.
Perfect.
To drop the spirit bomb. Beatdown _ city at Twitter. That's actually like it's a whole different side of humor. Like we got like doing a lot of tweets about kung fu movies and stuff. And we're gonna be coming out with more Beatdown City later. The game's just revolving on sale on like Switch and Steam, but like it will be out on at least one other platform this year. Thanks to one company working with us, maybe physical eventually. But yeah, there's a lot to. If I'm not saying anything, it's like funny. Like people are always like, "Why aren't anybody saying it?" Because I'm working. Like real G's move in silence, right?
Yeah,
like,
so real.
Real G's move in silence.
Like, where are you? I'm like,
yeah.
Because every day I wake up at 3 a.m. I take care of my kids. I work on this game. Yeah. I do the tiny side projects I have left. I try to keep up with the friends I have left, and then I pass out, and that's my day. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm not social media the way that I do.
Nowadays I disappear from about 5:30 until 8:30 because it's like my kid gets up or gets home from school or whatever. Yeah. And then we get her milk and then like read books and and then all of a sudden it's like dinner time. Maybe we go on a walk and then it's like 7:38 and you're like, okay,
day is gone.
Maybe it's 9. Yeah. And then it's like time to go to sleep at 9. She goes to sleep late and sleeps in. So that's really good. But yeah, it's like my evening just disappears some nights and it's so you just got to accept that because I want to spend time with her. So it's very important.
Absolutely.
We're gonna definitely do another podcast about the realness of games and kids
because he just started a whole situation right there.
Yes, I was like the realness. I was sitting here. I'm like I'm over here pushing stuff to the repo, baby on my boob, trying to get stuff together.
Yes, real talk. Pumping on other days when they're like doing all kind of mess. Nonsense.
Kids be hanging off you. My son over here arguing with me. Did I tell y'all my little junior playtester over here? My son was eavesdropping on all of our business calls because he used to sit right here behind me. Guys can't see him, but it's in my office. So this little thing used to be his setup when he was homeschooling. And I didn't realize he was listening to all the calls. Like he's a fan of Ethan. He's a big fan of Ethan, but he was listening to all the calls, every single thing. Like he showed his art portfolio to Ethan at Mitsu's wedding. Like this is how this went.
Oh my God.
But one time we were talking about UX. We were having a UX issue. We were like, oh, navigation is rough. Like, how do we figure this out? And Gavin, after I got off this call, was like, Mom, y'all are doing it wrong. And pulled out his little whiteboard from school. Let me tell you, I was dead. Pulled out his little whiteboard and drew, and he was like, in Pokemon, you have a flag. And the flag tells you where you're supposed to go. And your players don't have any flags. And that's why they don't know where they're supposed to go. And you should give them a bike. And I was
exactly. Like, he right. Like, baby, you right. You exactly right.
That's the worst part was at the time too with that. Now I was like, he's right. We do need a flag.
He not wrong. The baby.
So irritated. Pulled out his little whiteboard with the marker tapping. He was like right here.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh, I love that.
All the kids have been on Zoom for Jacob, you're on mute. Yeah, I can't hear you. Jacob. I'm like, who's hilarious? You're on mute, Jacob.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Bless the babies. Bless the babies.
We have so much more to discuss about game
I love it.
With children.
Well, I'm for real. If you've got time, I'll reach out maybe next month or so. Maybe we could do another, because we out here every month, not just the shortest one of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always down for a conversation with two of my favorite people. I miss y'all so much.
Thank y'all for joining us. Y'all are listening to Feminist Frequency Radio. I'm Kishonna. You just heard Shawn and Latoya, amazing human beings. I have been huge fans of them like forever. So this is really a treat to be able to share space with them. And you all are super, super honored. Call yourselves blessed for being able to hear from them. So somebody's going to be back next week. It'll probably be me and Anita, maybe to talk with Jess Pabone about female street artists, which is super dope. And just so you know, the folks that are behind the scenes of Feminist Frequency Radio, our show is engineered by Rob Pera, Carrie Simpson, who provides technical support. The artwork is by Jamie Verone, and our intro music is by Phil Circus. Thank you all for listening. Take care. Mask up.